Hi there. Welcome, everyone. This is Manish Sharma, your host for this webinar. And I welcome all of you in this 2021 first webinar that we're doing. I also hope all of you have a fantastic 2021. Although I will settle for a very regular 2021. It does not have to be necessarily very fantastic. Regular will do just fine for me. I have with me my co-panelist, Ujjwal. Hi, Ujjwal. How are you doing?
Hey, Amish.
Ujjwal, just like me, Ujjwal has also spent a lot of time in product management and cloud strategies. He has worked for companies like IBM, and I have worked a lot in service industry and innovative solutioning. Welcome to this webinar. Let's get started. But before I get started, a couple of just housekeeping information. You can ask question anytime during this webinar. You can just type away the question. There's a small window called Q&A. We'll try to address question as and when they come or towards the end of the webinar. That's either one is fine. We are recording this, so we'll send you the recording. And I think that's about it. Those are the rules. It's not so very 200 rules kind of thing. Anyway, let's get started. So, Ujjwal, how do you want to get started about the information that we have?
Welcome all to our audience and participants across. It's nice to basically be a part of this panel discussion. And I was hoping, like, why not we just first touch base? Why don't you touch base on what really happened and what really changed in the 2020, which leads to the service desk changes overall? And we'll talk about that to begin with.
Yeah. So a lot changed in 2020 that is getting reflected into 2021. It was a watershed year, really. The way kind of, we have structured the information is first we are going to talk about five major forces of change that really impacted us, which is actually forcing us to change in 2021. So this is a crystal gazing exercise, based on experience, and I'll welcome to hear what some of our attendees also have to say. So we five forces of change that are making a difference into service desk. First one is, in our opinion, is remote work, right? And this is the yeah, obviously, last year, everyone transitioned, very hard transition for some of them, easier transition for some other companies, depending on what you had invested in. You ended up having a new you know, remote working scenario where everyone was working from home and companies had to adjust. Now, in 2021, the funny thing is that a lot of us will be going back. Some have already started going back, and more people will be going back. So the planning around that, and the one who are not going back, right? The remote workers who are continue to work from home. How do you manage all that, right? That's something to consider. For a lot of
True,
leaders are going
true.
to consider what is happening
And
over there.
And yeah, I mean, I think that data point basically is talking a lot about that. I mean, when we did our own surveys also, and when we talked to some of the leaders also in this space, I think gone are the days when employee perks like foosball or dinners and those kind of things with the perks to keep the people at the workplace, right? It's no longer the case. Now you need more empowerment and more tech basically to keep them more productive at the home, and I guess that's clearly showing up in many of those views from key people. So that's an interesting point.
Yeah, we took this quote from someone in LinkedIn. I was looking at LinkedIn and someone commented, chief people officer of a company commented, this is such a powerful quote that you used to be able to get people saying, hey, I have a great company and great work culture. Look, foosball table, this perk, that perk. Now is a different kind of perk because everyone is working from home. So, or used to working in a different fashion. So what is important from them is there a lot of enterprise friction, right? If there's less
Sure.
friction, great place to work. So how you make a great place to work is completely changed. I found this quote to be so powerful, that I put it here. And I think Gartner also is saying something about
Yeah, I mean, Forrester, Gartner's, I mean, it may vary from industry and companies and all. So, but the broad trend is very clear. We are probably in the hybrid kind of a scenario where At times, there will be some scenarios where you have to be a frontline person, you have to be there, boots on the ground sort of scenario. But that kind of flexibility, wellness, driven by wellness and concern for employee healthcare, will basically drive these changes. So,
Yep.
right on.
Perfect. The next force of change is, collaborative tools. Now, this is very interesting. Again, this is a dark kind of moment. I think all of us are seeing this. All of us are on Zoom most of the time. We are on Teams most of the time. I mean, just imagine if we are in 2019 December, right? How many of us were using Teams or Zoom so much amount? Of course not, right? Like, so sure, we are seeing this change, but how does it impact service desk? And we believe, and I believe very strongly that this is entirely going to change. One small data point, right? Think employee portal versus Teams, right? Earlier, people do used to spend some amount of time on intranet and employee portal. I believe that that time has actually gone down because they are now spending
Mhm.
most of their time on the collaboration tool. So, is this something to watch for industry leaders? Absolutely, because
Yeah, I
this was
mean,
a
it's yeah, I mean, it's basically because of the demographic shift, basically demographic shift of like right from the baby boomers to millennials to Gen X to Gen Z. I mean, people have become trying to do more multitasking. That's why you feel you see in the personalized communication as well, right? WhatsApp, Telegram. Uh, that's the kind of experience, personalization experience, right? And when these guys come to workplace, they expect the same kind of a conversational kind of an engagement. And I guess teams, I mean, this has been a year of teams. It's going to be a year of teams. And of course, there will be other workstream collaboration tools. But teams has been growing like gangbusters, almost 4x growth in from 2020. I mean, the pandemic was an upending year, literally.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
that's a trend.
anecdotally, we are seeing a lot of people who are saying they're going to teams. And your comment about multitasking, I cannot multitask for to save my life. So I must not be the millennial or anything. I'm really getting old, looks like. But anyway, going to the next trend. This is again not a trend, sorry. This is the forces of change. We'll come to the trends later. The next force of change, according to us, is a conversational interface at home, specifically at home, because at home now we are used to Google Home and Alexa and Cortana. I don't know how many of you use Cortana, but sure, right? The point is that we are now getting used to the conversational interface and a new kind of design at home. Might be driving my car and say, increase the temperature at home, right? Now, that is going to make some impact in terms of people expectation when they come to work.
True. And so, I mean, just to give a reflection of like why this change has come about. I mean, think about the days like 20 years back when it used to be a UI, right? People used to talk about like you have to be a UI designer, right? Then it changed. It was mostly like interfaces, the old systems and all different workflows. Then it became more of a user experience. Then it became customer experience. And now slowly it's moving to a total experience. I mean, the fact is as we get more decentralized and work from home, you need to remove the monotony of like not knowing, not having the physical face, right? That's where Alexa's and Google's and other kind of conversational AI helps bridge that kind of a gap. And that's exactly what, and even Gartner are saying that like by 2023, almost 70% of employers are going to basically institutionalize this thing across their workplace. So this is also one of the trends which will help the service desk get along.
Cool. And the next force of change is automation need. Now, I'll start this by some anecdotal evidence. Like I was obviously throughout the year, last year, I was talking to different companies, and some companies were doing very well. Surprisingly, I mean, to be honest, surprised me in the beginning, but then I realized that some companies were doing very well, I mean, during the pandemic, and some obviously didn't do so well. But regardless of whether you're doing well or not well, the
Mm-hmm.
way people are looking at it, they still need automation. A CIO of a fairly large credit union told me, "We are growing, but I hate adding additional people in service desk because I continue to believe there must be a better way than just keep adding bodies to support our growth. So automation needs are not going anywhere. Again, this is not a surprise, but this force will keep getting stronger, especially for some companies where the budgets might be constrained and you might be looking at how to cut cost and how to be more efficient.
True. I mean, it's quite apparent. I mean, automation. I mean, in the past was mostly looked upon as an add-on, nice to have kind of a thing, but constrained hugely by budgets, right? So now with software becoming more democratized, I mean, things like cloud, AI, IoT, things becoming so pervasive and easy to consume and organize, I guess it's much easier to deploy basically. And
Yeah, and
that's a,
gone are the days. Remember the days when a automation project used to be, 9 month project, $540,000 with 15 consultants. I don't know. I'm just making it up, but you know, I think those days are gone because
yeah.
one CIO used to start the project and the another one will inherit. All those things. I mean, they still might be there, but I think the appetite for different kind of automation is there. It's not that kind of automation, but quick, nimble, fast. That kind of automation is what the appetite is increasing. And this is the last force of change. This is integrated service desk, and this we are feeling from the market, and multiple data points, and that's why we added that. So here's the story. Especially after pandemic, people are saying, I don't need to. Is there a way where I don't have 15 different service desks with 15 different way to approach and 15 different way to engage and for employee to figure out how to go. So silos, they're people are asking, can I give an integrated window, right? Like stuff like that. So there seems to be an directionally people seem to be going in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, that unnecessarily siloed and frictional thing between IT. I mean, the idea being the key message here is you need to now in the context of work from home and remoting, you need to treat all your employees as first class citizens, all your departments as first class citizens, right? You
So
cannot really
true.
differentiate that I'm going to put more budget here versus there. I guess that's a key message towards the ESM or AI ESM, as we would like to basically point out. It's more automation and AI infused ESM.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, there's a quote by Charles Betts, Forrester analyst, senior guy. He writes a lot about this. So anyone who's interested in exploring what enterprise service management is, you can read by Charles Betts. He's a good guy who writes a lot of good stuff. But enterprise service management is the new buzzword in this service desk industry. So we talked about the 5 forces that are going to bring some changes, or they're forcing us to make some changes, right? Now, before we go to actual crystal gazing and look at the solution, a quick, survey. Dan, can you run a quick survey that we are talking about? So, people who are attending might see a quick survey pop in, a small one. And if you can respond to that, we cannot vote. Host and panelist cannot vote. That should be fine. All right. I think it was a small survey. Hopefully, everyone has done it. Let's go on to now talk about the 5 trends that we expect in 2021. So
Right.
let's get started, Joe.
Yeah. Okay. So if you look at emerging trend, I mean, it's important we understand the context from where we are going, right? Coming. So 20 years back, I mean, when a lot of this service desk kind of things started coming out. Uh, if you look at kind of the whole model, right, it was mostly built around uh, doing things like manual kind of things like tracking, using an email. Essentially, it was a lot of budgetary related constraint perhaps, but most of not people, wherever they found an easier path, they basically used email or phone when they were not able to get through something, even though there were portals and websites and wikis and whatnot, basically, right? The problem was people kept creating things. They were not able to holistically use it and reuse it and basically update it in the right
Yeah,
fashion, right? And
absolutely. I
that's
mean, look at this picture here. So, what I think this picture is telling is that ticketing system was available, self-service assets were available to people, but people still prefer to make phone calls and write emails, and that generated a whole lot of back and forth between L1 and people, and then eventually the some issues bubbled up to L2 and L3. Eventually, all this was and is continues to be generating more work for all of us, right? Like and without the necessary output and the task even getting resolved in maybe still 2 days, right? So
mhm.
that we think is the old model, and the new model really where we think it's going to go is this. Employees will come to your app of choice, like you might be on Teams, you might be on Slack, you might be on, I don't know, something else, and they might be able to just chat with an app and have a conversation, and basically the app will be able to resolve most of their troubles, give them the right answer, whatnot, and if they cannot do that, then it will escalate and bring the right human experts into the call. And by the way, all the ticket creation, etc., is done by the app or the bot, whatever you like to call it. An employee will never have to do two things, right? Employee do not necessarily have to make a phone call anymore, right? They don't, right? They can just get these things done in 5 or 10 seconds by talking with the app, or they don't even have to know what a ticketing system looks like, right? They do not need to look at the shape or the face of a ticketing system in their life. So this is a dramatic shift, but we do believe this is coming. A lot of people, we
and
see a lot of movement towards this.
I guess if I may add up, people are now more used to the multimodal and the multi-channel kind of thing. The very fact that if you use a conversational channel, be it mobile, tablet, desktop, it really doesn't matter. It's the same fluid motion workflows basically that everybody's used to. So it reduces friction. And that's the key point you need to remember.
Yep, you're right, Chuchu. So here's the second
Right.
trend.
So here's the interesting thing, and I'm pretty sure everybody who has gone through the chops of growing up from being a new joinee to a new team, etc., right? They would have realized that every company and team had their own sort of a best practices. Team had their own best practices. Some kind of a web page where they used to write all the step one of two, like handholding of a new employee or tribal knowledge, if you may say, right? It used to help to an extent. The problem though was beyond a point, nobody cared to update it, and it really didn't extend beyond department. So after a few days or months, maybe the typical problem, I want to basically initiate some department change, or maybe my name is not right. Where do I go to? Which link do I click to? Right? Those problems remained as is. That's where the silos, and then you have to really go and find somebody else, friend with somebody else, and try to find out, hey, where do I find this information? So you keep bouncing around, right? And that's what exactly this 404 message, right? When information is not there, and you want it. So even though it might be trivial at times, but it
Yeah, I
really
mean,
is
I mean,
the key.
where are you going to go for information? Are you going to go to SharePoint, find a big document, open the document, and find out the answer that you're looking for, or you are going to go? Hopefully, a friend helps you, and the friend. So the point I think is that, and I often say that if you buy a ticketing system, that doesn't mean you have a service desk. A service desk is more than a ticketing system, right? And then if you have a service desk, that is not equal to having a employee support, because employee support is more than just buying a ITSM system, right? Because employee needs more than what an IT help desk can do for them, right? It needs, and it's multiple service desk. And so this is the model we think where it is going, where let's say employee needs upskilling knowledge, they just want access to some quick how to, they want to initiate a process or understand a process, let's say, that they have to use in their workplace, they have to perform a task, they have an issue, all those kind of things will be driven by a single window, right? And this single window, as Ujjwal you were saying, is the AI ESM, where they can go, let's say in our case it's on Teams, and then behind the window are sitting multiple service desks, multiple services like knowledge as a service, for example, right? And your tribal knowledge, your rules, policies, all of that is sitting behind, and that's sitting behind in such a fashion that's geared towards automation. An enterprise in backend can add SMEs, We can perform task increase, keep increasing task automation, can keep increasing process automation, can connect the system to various APIs. So basically, single window approach where you don't tell your employees, listen, you have problem A, you go there, problem B, you go there, problem C, you go there. That is not, I think, the way to go, especially post pandemic. And we do feel a huge movement towards ESM, and we call our version of ESM, by the way, AI ESM. So that's definitely a trend, according to us.
Right. And I guess coming back to, I mean, we already, I think, discussed about the forces at play, right? I mean, AI and automation is clearly the driving force, and as you likely mentioned, right, the anecdotally, companies used to really put a lot of budgets to or bring external experts, right, who were like workflow experts, BPM experts, kind of a thing. Now, in the post-pandemic scenario, it's also important to really realize that you don't really need to automate everything just because you can automate something, right? I mean, you have to also need to look at what are the wasteful processes can we eliminate? Because in the new post-pandemic decentralized thing, things are going to be changed, right? You don't, I mean, if you are going to use conversational interfaces, engagements, you probably don't need all the whole 9 yards of the previous
Yep.
workflows, right? So what you essentially need is easy to consume design, simple like a no code, low code sort of a thing, quickly test it, deploy it, and see if it really solves your problems, right?
Yeah,
And
and
that's the whole idea.
and Ujjwal, to this point, right? To add to your point, the things like learning, right? Creating or sharing knowledge, accomplishing everyday tasks like booking a conference room, getting help, collaborating, automating, everything can be done conversationally now, right? Like, there was a time when all of this could not be, only some things could be done conversationally. But I think the way I want the organization leaders to think is, what can I not do conversationally? Actually, you can have the entire enterprise run in a conversational mode, and that is where we are headed. By the way, you can have this entire conversation out of Teams, right? Like, for example, Teams or Slack or whatever, and create the first line of defense via chatbot, right? Something like chatbot. Chatbot is a word that I don't really like to use, but it kind of still communicates what conversational AI is very easily. So it kind of, you put that front there, and then you are able
Right.
to,
And
get the desired result.
And just to add one extra tidbit about this, I mean, most of the analysts, Gartners, and Forresters are already saying that almost 3 out of 10 organizations that is surveyed typically are looking at employing a RPA, chatbot, VDA. I mean, all these are
Yeah.
acronyms uh, in their buying decision. So already, because of the change in the pandemic, people are already looking at rejigging some of their budgets, because right now the key requirement is, in the shortest time, how can we solve remote workforce? How can we solve virtual engagements for their employees, right? And this cuts through that.
Yep. And I think we, on the automation side, we already talked a little bit about it. So the automation, the appetite is for smaller automation. I'll take this. This is a small slide. The appetite for automation is different now. It's not, it's actually increased appetite, but different kind of appetite, right? So people are looking for simple, like you said, no code, low code, decentralized. You don't need to put
Mhm.
15 business analysts to figure out what automation we need. And another aspect I want to add is, people were not viewing knowledge as an automation, right? But now knowledge automation, there's a term called knowledge automation, which people need to start thinking about, right? What is my knowledge related automation, right? Like, how am I making the right information available to right people at the right time? So, and one last kind of trend I want to talk about is the uh, workflow approval over emails. Like, this is pretty hot, I really like it. So you can build a small workflow where people can say, oh, suppose you are approving something for me, you can just say on your email or team, say approve, yes, go, done, done, done. I don't need to go in the back end somewhere to do things. So these are the kind of a smaller ticket automation which are going to make up for by volume, because you can do a whole lot to do that.
Right.
And
And I
this is our
guess
final one.
Yeah, this is like interesting in the sense, and again, it comes back to the old problem that in the past, most of the systems and services were designed with a more centralized, workplace oriented kind of thing, right? More agent oriented things. That's why you would find most of the metrics are also around agent kind of a thing. How good, bad, I mean, they have been performing. So it's no wonder most of the KPIs were also oriented around that. So some of these things are like how, I mean, the CSAT, right? It's changed by NPS, utilization kind of a things, right? But in the new context, obviously, remember it's more decentralized. It's more about like employee first sort of a scenario, right? So
Yep.
some of these might not be relevant anymore because we have automated a lot of the agent specific kind of thing, right? We have done more of shift left, which means more deflection, more standardization. That's why, see, you need this metric because you don't have much standardization. I don't know what my 30% is equal to your 30%, right? So that's a kind of paradigm shift, I would say, that people have to look at.
Yep, and the new, this is, and I know this is not a 2 minute topic, right? And we are going to send a ebook about this, but we have actually researched on the new kind of KPIs that people want to put in place once they move to new kind of systems. So, for example, accuracy of your AI, that's a new KPI that nobody measures right now. I have not heard anyone measuring that, but people should be, right? Like if they're using AI in their enterprise, how accurate is it? Or how many times AI has to escalate to human, right? What is that percentage? 20%, 50%, 100%, right? Then we talked about how people add small automation. Then the question is, someone at the top will say, how many automation, small automation did you add this month, right? Did you add 10, 5, 0, right? What was it that we are doing? So I think what we are measuring will change, and the changes will be different for different organizations. But I see that people are going to look at and say, what is it that I'm measuring? How do I define my success, right? In the new mix of things. So that is also going to happen.
Right, right.
Anything you want to sum up with before
So
we jump to Q&A,
yeah,
John?
so I would. It's more of like a very top level kind of a thought, but it's something which I guess might be at the top of the mind of a lot of people. Remember, I mean, pandemic has changed the whole the way in which we basically look at employee engagement, etc. Right? Remember one thing: for every organization, the leaders, your employees are your competitive differentiators, right? In this hyper competitive scenario with changed scenarios, you need your competitive differentiator to be with you. And if you have to keep that differentiation with you and augment and supplement, you got to look at service desk because it really helps augment and boost the employees' overall wellness, right? And surprisingly, our research has shown that despite this fact, in the SMB sector, which is a huge across all industries, less than 20% of I mean employees have actually or organizations have actually deployed or adopted some form of service desk.
Yep.
Larger organizations, higher budgets, maybe around 50, but there's a huge runway. I mean, that you
So,
have to
so
really look
we,
at.
we are cutting a little bit short on the time. So there are a couple of questions I'll like to address real quick. Thank you for that, by the way. So one is, can the chatbot or AI systems can be customized for each client? Absolutely. So each customer, these are configurable solutions, right? So gone are the days that everything needed coding. These are configurable solutions which can be configured very easily either by you or by the company like ours, or whichever is the product that you're dealing with. So that is how these new solutions are coming, which are very different from the 10-year-old technologies where everything was huge amount of big endeavor to change anything or add a workflow or something like that. There's another question that has come up about, can the older technologies be integrated with newer conversational AI technologies? So yes, they can be, right? As long as we have APIs, it works perfectly. The third question, and this is the last question that I'm seeing, and I'm happy to, um, add any other questions if anyone has. One last question is, um, what kind of change to bring about the kind of change that you're talking about? How difficult is it to achieve, or how soon can solutions like these be deployed? Well, typically, again, I mean, we are talking about new technology, right? these kind of technologies can typically be deployed like with weeks and not in months, right? So you're talking 4 weeks, 5 weeks kind of deployment and change. Of course, there'll be some involvement from senior management, but once you get a directional right, you can bring about this change not in months but in weeks. I don't see any more questions. We'll welcome if, and we are actually kind of running out of time. So if you have any more questions, feel free to give the answer, send those to us. We'll be sending you, ebook about KPIs. We want to thank all of you for joining the session today, and we look forward to welcoming you in more webinars. And feel free to look us up or on our blogs and future webinars. Thank you so much for joining today. Thanks, Ujjwal.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
time.